We got the head man at URI. He wants our money, and he's got a good reason for it. The University of Rhode Island is a jewel in this community, and if you don't recognize that, you need to spend some time down there thinking big, because they do. And it is one of the, this is not just because Dr. Dooley, the president, is here. It is because I know it to be true. And this is an economic driver of this university. The big question, though, and a fair question is, why does it cost so much to run a university, and why do they need $125 million for an engineering building? That will be our conversation tonight. And I'm sure Dr. Dooley's got the answers. So it's an honor to have him here this evening for the broadcast on a Friday night. And it's a pleasure to have you, of course, on Dan York's State of Mind. Let me hustle through a couple of things, though, that are on the rundown this evening. Just some thoughts about stories and the events of the day, as you well know if you're a regular listener or viewer. And if you're not, well, welcome. This is it's important to make sure that as the rumor mill on Ebola runs around, that you understand what that means. Now, Gina Raimondo, through her spokesman, has redefined her partial birth abortion philosophy, it seems. I've been asking for some affirmative numbers on how we hire police officers in the city of Providence, and Buddy Cianci's not quite sure either, but his answers might be a little bit better than Jorge Alorza has been able to offer this week. And the mayor of Woonsocket just doesn't understand that you can't do that. Let's dig in. This is a funny end of the week, I'll tell you. This is not funny, obviously. The headline here has this gentleman who is a Rhode Island guy who's working with NBC, and he's doing some yeoman's humanitarian and journalistic work over in West Africa, and he contracts the virus. His mom explains how he might have gotten it.
He's in the early stages of the disease, so hopefully they'll be able to keep him stable enough until the plane comes on Sunday. Apparently at one point he was trying to help decontaminate a car. He had most of the protective gear on, but he thinks something might have splashed on his body at that point. That's one possibility, but really one doesn't know.
Yeah, I know it's tough to figure out this whole Ebola thing, right? And I'm no medical expert, but by next week we'll bring some medical experts on here to kind of talk about what's going on with this. It's a body fluid contact type of thing. So far, it's not an air-transmitted virus. But what's important is when we find out that, fourth Rhode Island man type of thing, listen, understand something, or fourth man, from Rhode Island. This guy didn't contract this in Rhode Island. This didn't happen in Rhode Island. He's a Rhode Islander who went to West Africa, who's now flying to Omaha to get cured. So when somebody at the water cooler or at the ball game this weekend goes, "Hey, you see that Rhode Island guy with Ebola," and scares the living daylights out of everybody, check them off. All right, next item. Now she tells us, and I say she in quotes because she ain't she, it's he. Yeah, all right, you followed this, right? So here's the headline: LaSalle Academy takes her photo off the wall. Gina Raimondo, Democratic candidate for treasurer, because of her very aggressive stance on abortion. Bishop Tobin was very clear about how offended he was on my radio program yesterday.
I think what was stunning to me and to many others around the states, around the diocese, was the very extreme position about abortion that she presented last week, and in the rather aggressive, angry, almost defiant way in which she expressed it.
All right, so we know that hole that Gina Raimondo has dug, but she dug it deeper when she talked about the 1997 law on the Rhode Island books that she'd like to have removed, which has been contested by the federal court on its constitutionality. But the way she said it, it was more or less, I'm for partial birth abortion. She didn't say that, but that's what the law was intended to negate, and she wants to pull the law off the books. She wasn't very clear. Well, her spokesperson finally, after a week's worth of raining down on her by everybody, pro-choice and pro-life, said the following. She was making a point that it's goofy to have an unconstitutional law on the books. It had nothing whatsoever to do with the merits of late-term abortions. You know what's goofy? I'll tell you what's goofy. Having the lead in a governor's race and being in a position to kind of ride it out and picking a fight with the church that you belong to, that's goofy. Actually, that's plain stupid when it comes to running for office. Gina Raimondo has not had a good week or so. She's goofy. All right, next item. I've been trying to get a price tag on how we're going to get 100 new cop positions in the city of Providence. I struggled with Jorge Alorza last week, you know, and early this week at a press conference, as I've described on this rundown. If you're a regular viewer, you followed that. I can't get a specific answer, only conceptual. Even on the TV debate, he suggested now it's an 8-year goal for him. You got to elect him twice in order for him to be able to add 100 cops. Well, Buddy Cianci had a press conference today. Here's the headline on WPRI.com. He too wants more cops. And it's kind of interesting. He had a press conference today. Here's a Twitter picture from Ian Donis from Public Radio. I also took a photo, but just didn't like it. That's an inside joke. It's Friday. I'm a little punchy. Anyway, I asked Buddy specifically, how do you fund it? What's it cost? Where's it coming from?
Police department budget is $69 million a year. Every cop is $50,000 plus benefits. So it's going to cost, if you add, it's going to cost, let me see, whatever the math is, $5 million, $6 million, $4 million, whatever it is. But I'll tell you something, whatever it takes is what we have to be prepared to spend.
All right, so at least he's not messing around with the concept that we'll go to Washington and get grant money that doesn't exist anymore. And if even it did, it's diminishing funding. You have to be able to fund police from your own taxpayer dollars. He says he's going to run an audit to identify waste, fraud, and abuse. I asked him, what if there is none? He laughed and said, ha ha, Dan York thinks there's no waste, fraud, and abuse. I said, no, what if there isn't anybody? What if? Kind of took a pass on that one. So he might have this much of a lead when it comes to specificity and how we're going to protect the city. And the beat goes on. All the way to Woonsocket, where that mayor has just, oh, did she step in it? The problem is she doesn't understand she did, really. The Woonsocket Call headline here, mayor hired son, teammates for summer jobs. It comes from the Hummel report, and it's almost self-explanatory. Listen, watch this.
Did you advertise those positions? How did the word get out? How did they know about
No, it was not advertised in the newspaper, if that's what you mean, no.
Right. And so, we had heard this, your son and a lot of his baseball team was involved.
A good portion of them were baseball players, yes.
What about the perception of that the mayor's son got a job that maybe a lot of other kids maybe didn't know about and could have gotten and would want to work, that he wound up getting that job?
I did think of that when he indicated that he would like to do it too, but I felt as though, why discourage someone, especially a youth, from wanting to work, and when nobody else was left out of the equation.
Yeah, but how many people knew about it?
The amount of people that knew about it were the people who I just happened to be speaking with one day at a function.
Oh, God bless her. And the taxpayers of Woonsocket and all of us who fund Woonsocket. Mayor, guess what? The whole world wasn't at the function. Guess what you do with public jobs? You post them publicly, and you have a fair process for people to compete or draw a lottery or do whatever you do. You don't say to the ball team, hey, I'm the mayor, I got money, you want to sweep the streets? The Woonsocket Call wrote a lead today on it. They write, in apparent conflict with the anti-nepotism provisions of the state ethics code, Mayor Baldelli Hunt created a seasonal jobs program earlier this year, opening new positions for highway laborers that were filled by her teenage son and his teammates on the summer baseball league. Finally, someone got to her today after we talked about it on the radio. She called my radio show and she spit up a half a mea culpa.
I was thinking that it was a good idea to put some youth to work. And in retrospect, should I have requested that it be advertised? Yes. So, was that a misstep? That was probably a misstep. It probably should have been advertised. It was very...
It's like pulling teeth to getting her to admit that transparency and trust is important in government. She's got a conceptual problem. There's little things that bury leadership in a mayoral administration, and she's teetering on losing her leadership position on this summer job decision. Someone better get to her and give her some good advice, because clearly she doesn't understand on her own. When we come back, the president of URI. Stay with us. All right, welcome in. Dr. David Dooley is my esteemed guest. I can't believe it's a year on the show and we haven't gotten him in here. He's probably going to whack me for that. But here's a headline here that I think everyone will be paying attention to regarding this, or a series of headlines. It's gotten a lot of attention. Question 4 on the ballot. And you know what? Why don't we run this little video from Eyewitness News talking about what Toray Plastics is doing and what the whole consideration is, and then we'll get into the meat of the matter.
The gymnasium at Torrey Plastics campus was transformed into a bond question launch party, and for good reason. The company is dumping $2 million into plans to rebuild University of Rhode Island's Engineering College and is asking for your help.
If you look at the number of people we employ at Torrey, 77 of those people have URI degrees, and of those, 23 are degreed engineers.
Everyone here agrees the College of Engineering at URI is second to none. But it's dated. The building's built back in the 1950s and 60s. Approval of the $125 million bond would build a new engineering facility on campus and renovate the old facility.
So there you have it. Welcome, sir. It is great to have you.
It's great to be here, Dan.
By the
Good
way,
to see you on the show.
Full disclosure, I am a very part-time employee at URI as I handle the public address and basketball games. I can promise you that position wouldn't affect me challenging the president if I thought there was something going on, as you well know. So,
as well I know, Dan.
This is always a great time to remind everybody about how well the university is placed, how it continues to grow, what kind of a jewel it is. Having said that, you've got a task down there with this very important engineering major, and we don't have a facility you say that is up to snuff, correct?
That's correct. I mean, basically, these are facilities, for the most part, that were completed between 1958 and 1963. So they're over 50 years old. A lot has changed in the intervening 50 years, as you can well imagine. And frankly, they're just not adequate anymore for the kind of teaching and research that needs to go on in a 21st century College of Engineering.
It is uncanny to me how many engineers graduate from that school and work in very high places. It's a story that I know you tell well, but needs to be told. I mean, it's a big asset.
The graduates of the College of Engineering are truly extraordinary. I mean, they are very accomplished. They have the skills, the expertise that employers are looking for. They have a terrific work ethic. We've heard that over and over again. And yeah, a lot of them go quite far and rise through the ranks to be, for example, president of Technor Apex, one of Rhode Island's biggest manufacturing concerns. That's still very globally competitive, one of our leading companies, and led, again, by a URI engineering graduate.
The academic excellence is so much a part of the culture there. The attention drawn to URI all too often, I think, is about parties at Narragansett.
Unfortunately, one event like that, I think, can generate a lot of news, and I understand why people respond to it, because it is news, and it was an unfortunate incident, one that we worked very hard to try to head off. But in the days of social media, a party like that can be organized via Twitter in 30 minutes.
Yeah.
It gives you very little time to sort of try to nullify it.
And the only reason I bring that up is because I think sometimes we have a kind of a nonchalant citizen view of what URI represents, and when a story like that grabs headlines, it takes momentum away from the stuff that everybody who works there, understands there, and who hires people from there really understand, that this thing is really maxing out in so many ways on the cutting edge of technology and the like, blah, blah, blah. I mean, the pharmacy school is second to none. Some of the and by the way, I've been on the campus lately. The renovations are incredible. There's a lot going on there. You still have a little bit of a challenge, or a lot of bit of a challenge, articulating that message to the entire constituency, right?
Yeah, we do. I mean, it's an active priority for us, is to get the word out, let people understand both the diversity of the institution, the excellence of the programs that are there, and frankly, the priorities that we set for building the kind of community on the campus that enables the students to reach their full potential. We are dealing with an awful lot of young people between the ages of 18 and 24. And their social lives tend to be very important to them at any given moment.
Well,
but for the
young,
most
right?
part, keeps me going.
Absolutely.
For the most part, they're exciting and fun to be around.
When we come back, we'll talk about what $125 million means. Where am I? Oh, sorry, Jess. We'll talk about $125 million for one building, and why and what you ought to be considering come election day. Stay with us.
The
president of the University of Rhode Island, Dr. David Dooley, is my guest. Yes on 4, no on 4. I mean, obviously he's yes on 4, but you have to decide yes or no on 4. You know, the history of referendum questions for growth at URI is pretty good, isn't it?
It has been very good. The people of Rhode Island have been strong supporters of public higher education in general and of URI in particular. I think they've done a really great job, I think, of understanding the need for new facilities. We had a very long period of time at URI where we did very little renovation or new construction. And for the last several years, we've put together a strategic process to really revitalize the campus and the facilities to provide the kind of education and research support that the state needs and deserves. And that's been very successful, and I think the voters have been strong supporters of it.
$125 million for an engineering building. Why does it cost so much?
Well, what we're doing is we're remaking an entire college. If you think about it, we're taking down several buildings that were constructed during the 50s and 60s. We're demolishing those buildings. In order to do that, obviously, we have to have some place to move the college so it can continue to teach and do research while we're constructing the new facility. And that brings us to the price tag. The way I like to think about it, though, is that this is the first time we've made this kind of investment in the College of Engineering in its history since the 1960s. That's one. So over a 50-year period, it's not a lot. And secondly, it's less than 1 year of the positive economic impact of the college. We've done the study. The college has a positive economic impact annually of $142 million. So we're asking for essentially less than 1 year of that positive impact to make sure that that continues to benefit Rhode Island for the coming decades.
How do you pay for it?
Well, the way it's going to be paid for, basically, as you well know, is a general obligation bond issued by the state, if approved by the voters. It is a favorable climate right now for borrowing, so the financing costs should be relatively low. And then the state is in a favorable position, according to the governor, who spoke about this at the Torrey kickoff event, to borrow, given the debts that will be retired over the next few years by the state. The governor felt that this was a favorable opportunity.
State taxpayer budget services this bond, or does tuition money at all?
No, this is paid by the state taxpayers as part of the state general obligation debt service.
Most people's instinct on the kind of building that goes on at URI is that there's a necessary price tag that's built in that wouldn't be so if it was a private sector contract or project. In other words, the union costs, all that kind of stuff. Accelerate the price tag, and there's hardly anything you can do about it. Your thought on that? In other words, if someone, same kind of facility, same kind of redistribution program of products and services, it might be 20–30% less if it wasn't being done as a union job on the campus.
I'm not sure that really holds up on close analysis. I think a lot of what drives our construction costs are, one, the complexity of the facilities that we tend to build. Obviously, if you're building science facilities, the mechanical and electrical systems for those facilities are very complex, and that tends to drive up construction. And also, we build buildings to last 30, 40, 50 years. I mean, we want them to have that kind of structure, and that's, again, not the typical kind of construction that most people are familiar with. So do we pay a premium as a public institution? We may pay something of a premium because contractors understand that on a public job there are just a lot of factors that they have to deal with that they don't have to deal with in the private sector.
What would happen if the voters said no?
It would be a true setback, I think, for the college and the state because the facilities are inadequate now. And frankly, we have held them together with a lot of innovative approaches to adapting, and so not having those facilities being able to replace on the time frame that we've set out for the state would be a very serious setback.
It's interesting, if the facilities are so obsolete or close to it, you still have this phenomenal reputation for engineering work and majors. So clearly, reputation of success and where you place engineers in the economy is keeping this thing glued. But
Absolutely.
You're telling me the timeline's running out. You better have the facility to support it, right?
The timeline is running out. What we've been able to do is we've assembled a terrific faculty. We've been able to hire great young faculty in the last several years. We have many very distinguished professors who've taught at URI and done research there for a long time. The faculty's terrific, and that attracts students. And we have some absolutely unique programs, like ocean engineering for one example, like the International Engineering Program for another. That's especially appealing to female engineers. So that attracts the students, but unless we get these new facilities, that's going to tail off dramatically.
Right. We'll check in with you on the radio some more on this 125 investment, which, in full disclosure, I mean, I support. I mean, how could you not? I'm sure it's well thought out. What's with this hotel idea? You going to put a hotel? We had a headline on the hotel that we were going to stick up there. I only got a minute, but this seems like a kind of cool thing.
Well, I think it's an opportunity for us to use our assets, which are land and customers, to see if we can attract the private sector to come in and make an investment on the campus that would serve the campus, I think serve South County in providing needed services and amenities for South County residents around the campus, support a whole lot of activity on the campus.
Moms and dads like to come visit their kids.
They do.
And you got a lot of out-of-state kids at that school.
We do, and we had, just this summer, for instance, we had 57,000 visitors. That doesn't count the students we taught this summer.
Really?
57,000 visitors came to URI for various conferences and events. That tells us that it's a great location for this kind of development, potentially, and we want to just explore that with potential private sector partners.
All right, good luck with the referendum question. Don't be a stranger. I'll have you back, okay?
Oh, I'd be glad to be back at any time. You know that.
Dr. David Dooley, your state of mind when we come back. Stay with us. Your state of mind is important to me and to the viewers, of course. Here's how you get in touch. 228-1886 is the voicemail number. Email me or tweet or Facebook post. Don't forget the E. Jess is just loading me up with funny emails to end the week. Listen to this one. This is kind of interesting.
Don, I was wondering if you would comment more on the abortion that Gina Raimondi had put out. Please comment on it. Thank you.
Josie, I'll make a deal with you. I'll comment more on her stance on abortion if you say her name correctly. Come on, Josie. It's Raimondo. Anyway, Monday, Dan McGowan will be here from WPRI.com to evaluate the current status of the Providence mayor's race. So stay tuned for that. I'll see you Monday on the radio at noon, too, on WPRI. Have a great weekend.